to start off with, my first question would be for Justin. One of the big things in like the lead up in marketing for this movie is the fact that Deku's accused of mass murder. What was it like putting a performance forward with that fact in mind, that he's kind of having to deal with this idea that, he's this mass murderer?
Well, it's definitely, not news you want to have to break yourself, and news that you don't want to see on the news. So I think it's just a really interesting element how suddenly the world has turned against Izuku when in his heart and in his core, he's trying to do what he perceives as the right thing. So yeah, I think that having to deal with that new reputation is one of the main propellants of this story, and how to let them know that no, it's not everything is as it seems.
And switching over to Clifford now, in the more recent events of My Hero Academia, Bakugo he knows about Midoriya's secret, and he's kind of started softening a little bit in the way that he treats Midoriya. Mm-hmm. Going into the movie with that in mind, is there anything about your performance in terms of when you're interacting with Deku about how your performance has changed?
I mean, overall, since the way that everything started in the beginning, it has changed a lot. I actually feel like in terms of this thing and the performance, Heroes Rising was a little bit trickier because we were recording that film during season 4, but knowing that the movie took place at some point in season 5, it's after some point in season 5. And so that was kind of tricky because I knew that there was development. I knew that Bakugo was starting to soften a little bit in that film, and so I kind of had to always go into it a little bit less aggressive. But then we would go back and record the series, which was earlier in the series, point in time, and so I'd have to be harsher. So now here we are. We were near the end of season 5. At the time of recording the 3rd film, and it didn't feel like such a dynamic jump in the character's personality because the film takes place more in line with where we are in season 5, as demonstrated by that season 5 had a tie-in episode that sets up this film. So for me, in this particular instance, it didn't feel like such a drastic change as I was going about it. But if I look at it as a whole from the beginning to now, there has been a lot of growth and a lot of development that Bakugo is not nearly as aggressive towards. He's just not as aggressive in general, I think. Kind of, he's still strong and he still has that aggressiveness, but like he doesn't just sort of lash out at people anymore.
And with a character so kind of over the top as Bakugo, as a performer, how do you make sure that you're putting the right amount of energy into that character at all times?
Well, in Bakugo, I don't want to say it's easy because it's far from it, but typically it's difficult to go too big with something that Bakugo is doing. If I am very loud or very strong or very aggressive in certain reactions or lines or whatnot, very, very seldom does it play as like, oh, that's too much. That's too much for this moment. That's too much for Bakugo. Typically, what's actually the harder thing is that when Bakugo has those quieter moments, the more introspective, the more like analytical moments, sometimes Colleen, our voice director, she pushes me to be like, you need to bring in a little bit more of that force. Like it needs just a hair more of Bakugo's like attitude to it, because then it can almost get to the point that if I'm too relaxed or too in the moment of analysis, we worry that it doesn't feel like the same character anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's actually kind of coming down from the big moments. That's the trickiest spot to navigate. Where's the right spot with him?
Going back to Justin, with the third movie coming out now, is there any moment from any of these three movies that kind of stands out as your favorite moment for Deku? Like one of the biggest moments of character development for him in the films?
Uh, well, I do think it's very interesting that, unlike the previous two movies, the main fight at the end with the antagonist is solo Deku. You know, he's got some support from Rhodey. Bakugo and Todoroki are also, you know, clobbering people nearby, but for the first time, it's not Deku and All Might. It's not Deku and Bakugo. It's just Deku fighting and trying to adapt on the fly and overpower this sort of overwhelming force. So yeah, I just thought that was sort of an interesting first for Deku. He's finally um, going out on his own against this worldwide threat.
And as kind of the last question, Justin, I'm curious if you have you caught up with the manga at all of My
Yeah,
Hero Academia? Do you know what's happening to Deku?
yeah, I do. I read the manga, so I'm aware of what he's going through. And you know, growing up is tough.
Is there anything that you're kind of doing to prepare for what your performance is going to need to be in the future?
I don't want to overcomplicate it too much, but I am very interested in what the Japanese actor will lay down for those moments, and just anything in the manga that I read, I'm always super excited to see animated. So when we get there, I'm sure it's going to be really cool.